Well, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Ivo Blackhawk, His Lordship from Onsteora, and this is going to be the first in a series, hopefully be a series of online classes where I will be hosting and helping to produce the back end, as it were. I know a lot of our really, really good teachers are excellent instructors, but we don't have the best, they don't have the most exposure with the latest online courses and technology. So I'm hoping to host and lend my expertise so that we can uh, bring that in and combine that with a lot of really, really good instructors here in Onsteora and hopefully abroad. So I hope I don't look too sinister. We're still trying to work out some of the lighting in my in-house studio. Kat, can you hear me? All right.
Yes, I can.
So, Kat, I'm going to go ahead and give me 1 second here. All right. So you should be all set to go. I'm going to go ahead and turn the show over to you, and I hope everyone enjoys the class. Go right ahead.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to my class, Introduction to Medieval Jewelry, or for my longer title is Medieval Style Jewelry 101, or How to Bling Your Garb Medievally Without Breaking Your Wallet. This is an introductory part of what I usually teach in a 2-hour class, usually at gatherings and events, but right now we can't do that. I wish we could. And I'll get it started. Jewelry has been practiced for many centuries throughout the world, using different techniques and materials and styles. During the Middle Ages, much of that became very much enhanced because of new processes and techniques and the mining and processing of materials and gemstones. And this, and when the Silk Road routes opened up, it brought more of that material into Europe that could be used by the jewelers and the jewelry making. This class is about making medieval style jewelry for yourself, using materials that would have been found in the Middle Ages and Renaissance at a cost that would not be prohibitive for you to make your jewelry. The history of jewelry is over, and jewelry making is over 7,000 years old, and it's been found in all parts of the world, from the Pacific Islands to the steppes of Central Asia to the European countries. Then the majority of the people were making it for their own personal adornment, for their own self-expression, and to show their status and rank in society, and just because they like the aesthetics of the materials. and they wore many types of jewelry: necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and rings. During the Middle Ages, minerals and gemstones and metal resources were more accessible to the jewelry makers. The mining techniques also became a lot more efficient and easier to resource the materials. As you can see in the handout, you can see the Silk Road and where much of the materials also came into Europe. Now we'll start with what kinds of materials were found in period, or as we had the time period of the fall of the Roman Empire to the 1600s. A lot of the materials that were used in period consisted of materials they had at hand and the ones that they mined. Bone from animals that were killed for meat and sustenance, ceramics, the fired clay beads and pottery, glass has been made since 1000 BC. So there's a lot of glass making beads, and you'll see a lot of it in Viking bead necklaces and treasure necklaces. Metal. Primary metals were gold, silver, copper, bronze, and brass in making jewelry. A lot of the precious gemstones were, and semi-precious gemstones were also mined. There is actually 200 varieties of gemstones, precious and semi-precious uh, stones known in the world. A lot of the precious stones, which may be a little more prohibitive now, they were brought over rubies from India, sapphires from Ceylon in Arabia, emeralds from Egypt, turquoises from Persia, and diamonds from the India and Central Africa. Semi-precious stones like amethyst were from Germany and Russia. Rock crystal came from Germany, Switzerland, and France, and opals and garnets from Eastern Europe. So it was a wide variety of materials they could use. And even marble was used in jewelry as well as jasper and other stones. Some of the raw materials of pearls and shells were found even in Scotland, in the rivers and byways of the country. And one of the things I didn't put on the list of materials, amber is also one of the primary uh, materials used in jewelry back in the period times. And it's basically found in the Baltic areas, and it's a resin from pine trees that just solidified. So you may find a lot of that. And they even use coral and shell like cowrie shells. They found cowrie shells in the Mediterranean and on the coast of North Africa. And then a lot of the jewelry stringing materials were made from fiber and thread like wool and hemp and leather and a lot of the other materials that they use is metal wire. In the Middle Ages, they were making wire through a draw plates technique, which differed from the folded metal they used to do. And then the metal wire done by draw plate was stronger and much more flexible to string beads and materials on. And then part of what you will see in your handout is there's a lot of examples of what people were wearing as jewelry during the Middle Ages, because the artists, the painters, painted a lot of people to where you can see the construction of the jewelry, simple necklaces and bracelets and collars and earrings. So it's a really good resource when you're trying to understand what kind of jewelry you want to make. Now, in our current Middle Ages, which for the Society of Creative Anachronism, which is 53 years old or so, it follows the Middle Ages of the fall of the Roman Empire to 1600s. A lot of us wear our jewelry the same way that they did in period. We wear it for adornment. We wear it to show off our garb. We wear it to show our rank and status in society, because we like to feel good and we like to show off our stuff. So we wear jewelry for functionality, clasp, and way to close up clothing and belts and other parts of our garb. And then now we come to what is your concerns in new jewelry making. I put 4 statements, and I will explain those statements. It's One of them is the first one is it's too difficult and complex to make meaningful jewelry. Not necessarily so. Most of what I teach in jewelry is the simple form and format of making jewelry, of bracelets and necklaces and earrings, because it really isn't that hard or complex. And in period, they were doing the same thing because it was simpler to better for just everyday wear. The Scandinavian cultures, what most of us know as the Vikings, wore a lot of the beads on just a simple necklace. Um, what I might have here is an amber and metal necklace. That's what they would have been showing on their persons, besides the clay beads, and and I have an example of that. I can get off the thing. Here we go. That's some of the materials that they would have been using. This is a clay bead necklace. It's very easy to string. So that's the simpler the better. And many of the other European cultures did the same thing. It was just that easy. The second statement is I cannot find the tools and materials to make the jewelry that I want to make. In today's craft markets, there's an abundant amount of materials and tools to make jewelry. You can find it in a lot of the small craft stores and in the large chain stores. Um, and you can find bone and crystal and ceramics. I just showed you a clay thing, and here's some of the metals that you can find that are easy to play with, like that, where you can make those into belts or pendants or collars and necklaces. Another one is like this. That is really easy to play with, and you can do all kinds of things for that. There is an abundant amount of glass beads that that look as bright and shiny as rubies and opals and other gemstones. And there's a large amount of semi-precious stones that you can use, that you can find. And you can find them in the round beads, and you can find them in chips. And this is carnelian. That's carnelian, which is a beautiful reddish orange into a very dark red. And then another is rose quartz, which is another beautiful um, material to use. And you can find jade, garnet, you can find malachite and magnesite. You can find a lot of materials in the stores now that will make your garb pop like as they did in the period. You can find shell, and even as I said earlier, in the Mediterranean, they were finding cowrie shells, which you didn't think that was a possibility. And it is stone, jasper, marble, and even lava stone. And you have the wood. There's a lot of great wood beads that you can use. Um, I'm wearing one of them on my necklace, and that's just simple wood is a great material. And most of these materials you can find, as I said, in the major craft stores and online. And it's pretty reasonable price. It's too expensive to make jewelry that I want to make. Another statement. I found that a lot of these materials are all over the craft markets, and they're not that expensive. And most of the craft markets usually make it accessible and inexpensive. And if when you want looking for these materials, a lot of these stores have amethyst and aventurine, jade and garnet, and it's available, and it's they have weekly sales on different materials for jewelry that you can buy it one week and then buy something else another week. And it's several of the major craft chain stores have a set of tools you can buy for a reasonable price without having to buy the more expensive tools. So you can start up your jewelry making now without costing a lot of money. And the stringing materials and the finding. And the last thing is, where can I find examples of patterns of jewelry and examples? One of them I already said, on the paintings. There's a tremendous amount of paintings uh, in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance period showing the different formats of jewelry from the simple to the very complex form. So you can find all this without having to do an extensive search. You can do a really simple search and find all these materials. And it's everywhere. There are several magazines that you can find. There are for jewelry and jewelry makers. One of them is Beading Style, Beading Button, and even National Geographic. There's a lot of jewelry shown in a lot of the magazines for different cultures. So that's an exceptional place to go look. And then you have a large amount of books that you can find really good examples of jewelry and patterns. And part of the bibliography is some of those books. I have one of them with me, and this is, I can't know if you can see the title. Yeah, I don't know. It's backwards, but it's 7,000 years of jewelry. It goes all the way from Sumeria to the Renaissance palaces of France and England. So this is a really good book that has a large amount of examples. And there's a whole list right there that you can find books. Another place that's really good, because a lot of museums have opened up now, especially during these times, where you can go on to a lot of museums and check out their collections. And a lot of them, you can also download some of those pictures to use for your documentation for arts and science competitions and for just discerning how you want to do your necklaces and bracelets and your earrings. And some of those museums are the British Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, um, and many more. I mean, they're the Berlin museums, even some of the Japanese museums are opening up to where you can look for examples of jewelry done in period. So that's a good place to go. And for pattern books, a lot of the big companies have pattern books on their website and in their stores. Some of the ones uh, will show you examples. I don't know if you can see it, but we're going to try. I just assemble a pattern necklace. And there's quite a bit, and there's pattern books. The Blue Moon Beads put out several pattern books where you can look at these patterns and adapt it to what you want to play with, how you want to do your necklace, what you like wearing, what the materials you want to show. And everybody has favorite colors and metals and materials they want to use. And a lot of the craft chains have metals that do not have any nickel in them. So some of you that are allergic to nickel, you can find materials that will not uh, spark your allergies. So there's a lot of materials out there. And another great place to go is Pinterest. Pinterest is a great place because a lot of people have put on their ideas of different subjects and places and whatever they're playing with, from sewing to cooking to all that. And you can find a lot of jewelry, and all you have to do is a simple search, and you can find a huge amount of material that you can look at and say, oh, I like that. And the British Museum has put stuff on Pinterest, Victoria and Albert. There's a lot of material out there. And you can find a lot of technique and patterns, not only from me. I usually do a 2-hour class, but you can find a lot of tutorials on online, including YouTube, which is a great way to learn beginning techniques for joining on strings of beads to the class, to the materials that you use, and even when you get more advanced, bead weaving. So there's a lot there. I'm sorry, I do a lot. But eventually, I plan to make more videos on techniques of how I do the materials and how I teach the materials to others. Because, as I said earlier, I usually do a 2-hour class to show people how to do their necklaces and their bracelets and earrings simply and easy for what they need to do, and make it an easy thing to where they enjoy making jewelry. And I'll look forward to, again, when this virus is all over, teaching my 2-hour classes again and show you the world of jewelry making. And now,
All right.
are we down to questions?
Yes.
Questions?
Yes. So what we're going to do here is take a few minutes to let everyone type in some questions. And Kat, I do have one for you. I'm going to send you the text of the question so you can see it, but I'll also read it for the audience. What sort of clasps for necklaces, bracelets, etc., would you appropriate or would be appropriate for period?
Many of the clasps I used were S clasp. S clasp, it looks like an S. It's a wire clasp, but it has open end on each end. But when you put it on a necklace and let it drape, it holds attention to where it won't fall off. And you can fix the clasp to make them a little less easy to slip through. Toggle clasp were another clasp to use. And when I'm teaching the class, I usually do let people do more of the simple class, because some of the other clasps are harder to pull apart when you're putting on and off the necklace. It's easier to have something that will be easy for people with less dexterity in their hands. And they did that in period. If you look at some of the period examples, it's either tied or they use metal clasps.
Okay. All right, I've got one here that not sure I understand this question. It says, do you know between larger amber beads? Hang on one second. Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to get a clarification on this question. This is okay, it was a typo. Do you put a knot between amber beads in the, okay.
You can. You can. If you don't want it breaking, I tend to do them straight forward but I used beading wire instead of thread. But a, a lot of people also use the knot between the beads. So if one part of that necklace breaks, the whole string won't come apart and be all over the floor. It's when you're wearing necklaces and things like that, they have a tendency when you're wearing them and they're bouncing around on your clothing and all, and you can catch it on everything. I've done it myself. There's a chance it will break. That's why I don't use modern materials like stretchy cord, except for children. For children, I will because I don't want them strangling on the metal
Okay.
beading wire. But most of the things, it's a 7 to 49 uh, braided wire that makes it stronger so it won't break so
Okay.
easily.
And by the way, for our audience, if you hear some of my answers possibly come before she finishes her question, it's due to the time delay since I'm hosting it. So if it's a little wonky, I'll apologize. That's on my end. I do have another one here for us. Do you use uh, crimp beads to space out the beads?
Yes, I do. For the same reason I use the beading wire to keep one, it helps space out the beads in a more easy format, but also it keeps the wire from letting loose those beads. It just makes it easier when we use it for the endings for the class, and when you use it, I use it in between the beads to first space them out and also keep them. If it breaks, it's not all over the
Okay.
floor.
We got a couple more questions here. This is going really good. Um, what metals do you find easiest for learning how to make the structure elements of jewelry?
Um, Actually, what I usually use is more of the base metals, the the bronze, and oh, my brain went hit dead. Uh, Bronze and brass, uh, to make it a little more period looking. Well, when I do use gold and silver, I usually try to do it the more uh, pure ones, but not so much base metal. I do buy a lot more base metal just because it's cheaper. But there are people out there that cannot use nickel and some other base metals because they're allergic to it. And I like using the brass and the bronze. It's easier and it takes wear a lot better than uh, the more expensive
Okay.
metals.
Okay. Um, what gauge of wire would you use with Viking beads? Evidently, someone tried making some to
Ah,
go with a brooch, and they are too stiff.
okay. Let me see if I can find it. But I usually use between a seven. Ah, here it is. If y'all can see it, this is part of the. Whoops, there we go. That's part of the beading wire I make. This is a 7 strand braided strand uh, wire that will take a small to large bead. It's 7 strands. It's usually about a 10 to 12 pound break breaking tensile strength. I usually use that because it'll take a lot more beatings with you wearing it, and if you catch it on it, it takes more pull to break it. For Viking necklaces, because some of those beads can be pretty heavy, and even the amber beads can get really large, and you want that wire to hold those beads more securely because it works, especially for the Viking treasure necklaces. When you wear them on your apron things, you want that to hold more securely. And this wire is very, very flexible. It acts like thread. The only thing you can't do with it is to tie it in a knot because of the metal. It'll fatigue the metal. But it's very flexible, and because it's it stays it's stiff in one part and flexible in another, it makes its own needle. So you don't have to use a needle to thread your beads, your your semi-precious stones, your clay beads, your amber. It makes its own needle, so you can go through those beads one after another without um, having to use the actual needle to string
Okay.
your beads.
So we got another one here. Would irregularly shaped pearls have been used?
Yes, because a lot of the pearls they found, and you can find them in the stores now, are not symmetrical. Because the freshwater pearls, as that they have found in Scotland, and a lot of the river alluvial plains of the most of the European countries, they found a lot of those precious those pearls along the banks because they're coming from the freshwater mussels, and you'll find them along the sea coast of most of the coastal countries, and they're not symmetrical. Majority of them, it's when you get in later period and into early modern times, you'll get a lot more symmetrical beads, and even the ones that are artificial, it's more of a grown pearl than there was in during the period times.
Okay. Another one here. What do you use to attach attach bead strings rather? What do you use to attach Viking bead strings or attach bead strings to Viking brooches? I
Oh,
can't talk today. I'm sorry.
yeah. Well, most of the bead strings, and I advise saying is when you string your beads, have enough wire at the end where you can make a loop and crimp that loop so it's a stable loop, and then you hook it to the brooches with a S clasp or a toggle ring or jump ring, and you can thread it into the brooches, and it stays. It's a lot easier than trying to tie it onto a brooch because it's a lot easier. And when you take it off the brooch, it stays in its strung form.
Okay. Looks like this might be the last question. Um, are Heshi beads acceptable as spacers between beads?
Oh
Okay.
yes, um, I have seen many paintings from the Middle Ages where they have shown um, some of those that format. It's not really a new thing. It's because a lot of countries not only they made the round things, but they made the it looks like spacers, but it's cut, symmetrically cut um, beads that work with for everyday use and for wearing, where you're not so afraid of destroying it from wear. And it makes it look interesting when you put it between the round beads and the other odd beads.
Okay. I think, let's see. Oh, we got one more that snuck in the door here.
Ha,
Got to scroll down to get to it. Ah, here it is. Can faceted gemstones be used?
yes. Um, I would suggest using them on beaded wire more than using thread, because a lot of gemstones tend to be sharp at the edges to the hole that's drilled through the gemstones, and they tend to cut over time and wear out the thread faster. With a beading wire, you have, and because most of the beading wire is coated, it will not wear out as fast. The friction will not tear apart the braided wire. It makes it a lot easier to use. And they use, by the high and late Middle Ages, they were using a lot more faceted gemstones uh, at that time than in the early Middle Ages, when it was a lot more simple, uh, refined gemstones.
Okay. We have looks like we got a couple more that came in, so I'm gonna go ahead and get these over to you.
Okay.
So this next one is wire weaving other than Viking knit, period.
Um, that's a good question. I haven't seen as much other than the Viking knit. I'm sure it exists. I have, in fact, I'm working on a project for that, is for wire wrapping as well. Is I found out the Byzantines were using a wire wrapped technique for putting their necklaces and earrings together. And as I'm working on that project now of, of showing what the Byzantines were doing with their jewelry that most people think of as wire weaving and wire wrapping as more modern, the 50s and 60s and 70s, is actually more period than you think. And that's one of my projects I'm playing with, because I have found many examples in the British Museum and many of the other museums showing this technique.
All right. I think that's everything. I'm gonna go ahead and close down questions. Kat, it has been a God's honest pleasure working with you on this. Thank you so much for teaching. I'm going to go ahead and close down that link. Thank you very much. All right. So I want to thank everyone for attending. Excuse me. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to post them in the event page itself. I'm sure Kat and I will be able to look at the questions and hopefully get you some answers. As always, feel free to reach out to either one of us. I do want to take this opportunity to encourage everyone not only to take advantage of online resources in this time of social isolation and distancing and necessary safety because of illness, but I'm using this medium as a proof of concept that instructors who don't necessarily have a lot of technical experience can, in fact, work with people who do have a lot of technical experience. And while I have my own classes I teach, I'm thrilled to be able to go out and teach, help other people teach like this. So please promote the idea of technical collaboration so we can reach out and make this more of a thing for the future, especially in the immediate future. So, excuse me. I am going to go ahead and we're going to close this down now. So.
Hello. Yay! Yeah. Yay! Yeah. Yay!